talking about the individualization of learning path. And obviously, we were talking a lot about the development of digital learning, new format, blended learning, and so on. So basically, we could look at our offering going from traditional programs, 100% face-to-face, up to programs that are entirely online. Then, 13th of March, the big storm of COVID. And what happened during that period? In a few words, emergency remote teaching became the norm during the lockdown. Very rapid adoption of new tools and teaching methods. We started recording classes, doing live streaming or delayed streaming. We're talking about HyFlex, face-to-face teaching when possible and or necessary. There are a few fields where we can continue. And we were talking so much about technology. A lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, and then also kind of a technology fatigue. And also, I think one of the other aspects was that there was a lot of free content in terms of education. So we can see it really as a kind of a tsunami of new online tools and methods, trying to really ride the wave of those new technologies and tools. And so for a while, and it's still the case now, I think in most of the countries we are from, we moved to kind of entirely online teaching, which was new for some people, not new for some others. And so I thought that during the week, we could try to reflect on what is happening during the storm. When I did those slides, I thought we would already be after the storm, but with the second wave, we realized we are still in the middle of the storm, but to already try to reflect of what is going to happen after the storm. Will we see the end or the comeback of face-to-face teaching? Will we see an acceleration of the use of educational technology in online learning, even in kind of more normal circumstances? Will we see a new breed of teachers and support staff? Will students be more demanding? Know that they will have seen different formats. Will there be new needs, new markets, new pricing? These are all questions that the continuing education units in universities all over the world will have to deal with and to kind of make decisions, sometimes strategic, more also sometimes more operational. So these are sort of the questions I think we will look at during the week. And today I thought there was no better introduction and then a presentation by Dr. Ingrid LE DUC, who will give the masterclass entitled Teaching and Learning in 2020, looking back and moving forward. Ingrid has been a teaching advisor at EPFL for 15 years within the CAPE unit, which is the Teaching and Support Center of EPFL. I know that a number of people from CAPE are here today. Special greetings to them. And I think that Roland Torme, the head of CAPE, is here today. CAPE has done an absolutely amazing job since the month of March. And EPFL, thanks to them, it's been really at the forefront of learning technology. Ingrid coaches and trains teachers at graduate and postgraduate levels on issues related to pedagogy and didactics, including new technologies. She was a member of the board of the Swiss Faculty Development Network. She is working with a number of universities, in addition to EPFL, like University of Bern, the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. Ingrid is from Mexico City and holds a PhD in social psychology from the London School of Economics. So really welcome to Ingrid. Thank you very much for giving this masterclass, and the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you for that nice introduction. That gives me some more time to present. So I'm going to share my screen. So hello. So I'm here, as Pascal said, I'm part of a team at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, the Teaching Support Center, and thinking of the before, during, and perhaps after the storm. I built this presentation based on things that all my team, or everyone on our team have been presenting and looking into during these months. I chose this picture to start. You can see my screen? Yes, okay. Because it was taken when we came back after the first lockdown, students having social distance, but not going to class together. As you can see, they're not wearing masks. And this is already a bit the past, because we are back in a situation where we're no longer going in campus. So things are moving very fast. And we are asking ourselves many questions and re-questioning things we thought we had answers for. So during this presentation, I would like to first discuss and first share with you our story from as a teaching advisor on going to emergency remote teaching. Emergency remote teaching is not online learning, but it shares some components. And how do these sharing of components through what we knew before that we confirm, or we think we confirm now that works or doesn't work, can help us move forward to thinking on what teaching is going to look like in the future. And in terms of executive education, I think this is a very important to consider our learners as adult learners who would have more interests in self-reflection and in developing or reinforcing their digital skills. I'm going to show you the results of 2 surveys that were carried out in our campus. They were in March and in April, so during the semi-confinement we had. To students and teachers about their experience with emergency remote teaching. And we presented results, qualitative and quantitative, which were analyzed by my colleagues who are here. So if they want to jump in and complement what I will say, I will be very happy. And then I want to bring the discussion towards the end about what we think higher education is going to look for in the future. But I am a very interactive, interactive presenter, so I'm going to ask you already to prepare a smartphone with you, because you're going to do some electronic voting, or to have another web browser at hand, so not to have a full screen because you're going to connect. I don't have time to ask everyone to introduce themselves, but if you could just, I'm going to stop the screen share and so we can see everybody. And those of you who want to raise your hand or have a reaction on Zoom, those of you who had coffee this morning, could you please have a reaction of coffee, you know, a reaction, raise your hand, like me. Yeah, those of you who have tea, yeah. For those of you who this is not your first Zoom call of the day, can you please raise your hand? Yeah, okay, so we're on the same. We're gonna make it fast and we're gonna make it fun, because this is probably not the last Zoom call of our day either. Okay, so let's go back to sharing my screen. So one of the things that came across very clearly during lockdown was this appreciation, in our case, from our students, in your case, probably from participants, how they were appreciative of teachers' efforts to move everything online. However, on the other side, and this cartoon, I found it on the New York Times, it wasn't that easy, was it? I mean, who has had this sort of reaction, like teaching and getting used to technology, but also being the caterer, but also being homeschooling, and also having everybody at home? Does this cartoon reflect your own experience with Zoom? I'm going to invite you to use the Zoom reaction again. Yes, no, kind of. Oh. Yes, it was difficult, and is it getting easier? Huh? So I want you to go to breakout rooms And I want you to make a print screen of this slide because you're going to take it with you. Do a print screen, open an empty PowerPoint, copy pasted it so you can take the question with you. Otherwise, you know, when you go to a breakout room, you don't take what's in the main room. And Carmen is going to very nicely split you into rooms. You have to take some time to introduce each other to your group and respond to this question. What is the best word to define your feeling, your personal feeling when teaching went remote? What would have been the biggest emotion you had, if you can find just one? So Carmen, can you create the breakout rooms? I'll see you in 7 minutes. Oh, better like this, in a word cloud. Right, so upsetting, exciting, fear, multitasking, challenges, emergency, apprehensive, patience. It's a lot of mixed feelings working together, and as Pascal showed, it's an emotional shock, meaning it's a bit like two tidal waves having a shock with each other, and when we are in this situation of emotional stress, what do? We cling to a fact that keeps us afloat. And actually these facts were very different from students to teachers to pedagogical advisors, but they were quite linked to the teaching situation in our context. So can you vote again? Not on the comments, but on the Flip 2020 code I sent. What was the most sought out teaching support for you in your case, in your situation? If you didn't use Zoom, maybe it was Teams or another? Was it to ensure, you know, how can I go online but still teach well? Was it how to activate my accounts? Was it my students are dropping out, what do I do? Was it confronting this sense of loneliness, I'm teaching and no one's there? Or was it more on the way of how am I going to grade my students? Or basically I just need to complain and be heard? You can have 2 answers maximum. Enough responses. Yes, so that's interesting. More and a third is how to use Zoom, but at the same time, a quarter is ensuring equality in online teaching, student motivation as well. Yes, in our experience, it was pretty much also how to use Zoom at the beginning. It was very much the technicalities, and as pedagogical advisors, we needed to sort of open up our skills. Maybe it was the same for your teams, not just talking about one specific theory, but to really have a plethora of knowledge that from we could chip from, and so we could help each other, because we were also working remote. So we can't just turn around and say, how do you do it and how do you do that to your colleagues who have different skills and complementary to yours. How to assess student learning, it came towards the end of the semesters. Yes, confronting teaching loneliness. Well, this was part of the knowing things. Nobody wanted to complain, Carmen? Yes, would you like to comment on this? Okay. So what did we do? I'm just going to give you from our experience what we did. Almost like overnight, but then we built up from what was done first. We created a new website was created with all that basic information. Go here, check here, click, access necessary resources and tools to go through emergency remote teaching. There were a series of roadmaps eventually that were created on how to transfer, you know, the lecture on campus to online lecture. Same with, we are in an engineering school, so projects, exercises, labs, exams, how do you move them online? And these were not done alone. It was done in collaboration with the technological team, the pedagogical team, but we were also asking experiences from teachers. We did use cases with teachers as we were moving along. They provided very good examples of things that were working well. And we also have quick start guides that we are still creating today on how to do edit videos, create your videos, reuse your videos, how to do Zoom, how to do breakout rooms, how to avoid trolls, and all the functions on Moodle. Having said this, these are things that we could have expected teachers were already familiar with, because this is not the first time they use an LMS for teaching, but it suddenly became the norm. And then a series of teaching workshops, so trainings for teachers which had to revamp and reformulate. The format was recreated from half a day or from a full day to 1 hour or 2 hour dropping sessions or workshops with discussions. And we did more than ever, if we count them, more than 30 in 6 months. And people were attending. Teachers had questions. They were very participative, and they were quite highly appreciated. And in extra to this, we opened also a help desk, 24/7 help desk, where people would send us an email and they would get an answer. And this help desk is still working today. So this is our example that maybe you also created similar support for teachers, or I would be interested to know, was it the same in your cases? You can write in the comments. Very similar. Yes, everybody was doing similar things. There's so many good guides going around the internet. Yes, thank you, Bushra. Lots of training seminars, yes. But then we didn't, because we're very curious. Yes, we didn't want to leave it just at that, and we wanted to know how things were going. So as I said at the beginning, there were 2 surveys that took place. One was for students, and it took place 3 weeks after the lockdown. About a third of the student population, and the survey explored how was their study environment at home, how could they concentrate, could they stay connected, how was the experience overall, and if there were any things that teachers were doing that helped them learn better than others, what were the good practices, what helped them continue. So the results here were published, and then the teachers came and said, we would also like to give our opinion and share our experience. Could we do another survey? So another survey was launched, and also a good response rate, quite decent. About a third of the teaching, and the teaching population is not just teaching bachelor, master's levels, is teachers, professors, and anyone who's teaching external lectures as well. These teachers are the same pool of teachers who would do executive education or continuing education as well. How was the teaching environment? I mean, very similar to the cartoon I showed at the beginning. And exploring a bit their views on what is the difference between teaching face-to-face and teaching at a distance, and what were the things that you did that you thought were working well to keep students, to help them learn. And so I'm not going to show you all the results of the survey. I'm going to show you some that I think are relevant for this week's theme for UCAN. So the first good results or interesting results are on the student survey. They show that, as Pascal was saying, they show fatigue and inequalities. About 20% of our students who responded, they didn't have a good enough connection, which was quite worrying, but it also shows that not everybody lives with their parents and has a good connection, and people who are coming from abroad, who are sharing an apartment with friends, or who have a bedsit, they didn't have the same conditions. So that actually became an inequality. And then the second thing that came out is that the concentration already on week 3 was quite problematic. One course after the other, it was a bit too much to stay concentrated and to learn on these courses. On the teacher side, the survey, I'm also going to share the numerical results. There was also qualitative analysis of the comments, which I include later. The teacher survey showed basically that teachers work very hard, and a preference to continue teaching on campus. If you compare, when we're asked to compare the workload to prepare the same course on campus and online, it's striking the results from their view. They had to move their course, and it's not just switching on the computer and speaking to it. It's all the arrangements and the structuring of the content to make it online, plus the learning management system where they have to do everything, and the question answers that they had to do. In our case, it is Moodle. So it was huge. Some of the teachers, the 23%, We are assuming that these are teachers who already have experience with registering MOOCs or who had a very well-structured course that they could just quickly stream live online. And this is another question that, as I said, on the basis of their experience in the last weeks, and this was April, what was their preference? Their preference was to stay teaching on campus. And part of this result was partially, but quite important for the decisions already for this semester, where we started in our case with a third of students present in campus, rotating, because teachers wanted this connection with students. They wanted to show. Yes, many teachers are also perfectionists, and some spend hours recording a 15-minute video, Ilya. Yes, that is true. That's why it was so much work, because you see each other. Yes, you see yourself on the video, so you are even more demanding and on a normal basis. So let me sum up a bit. So if we see on the teacher side, one result that came striking on the teachers is that there was a significant workload, but there was also a feeling of stress in their comments. They were expressing, you know, this feeling of stress, not just for the teaching, but for the situation, the uncertainty, the what's going to happen later, and the sense of teaching loneliness, because students were not showing up on camera, muting, or in some courses they were not showing up. They didn't know if they were listening. There were no questions. There was a lot of concern regarding that. On the student side, it really became apparent, not just on this survey, but also in student association surveys, that for students, this lack of social contact with peer students, and in some cases with the teachers, it affected the routine for learning. So attending class, talking to the friends, what do you revise? Can we study together? What are you gonna eat? How are you gonna go around this problem? For them, it's really important to create a habit for learning and giving them a rhythm. There was a motivation drop that they really said, you know, there's just so much time I can spend my day on connected to watching videos for teaching. And also, as I said, this technology and opportunity gap. Things that we found together, well, yes, there was this fatigue, this lack of interaction, that it was also linked to the confinement, this reduced concentration span on both sides, limited access to physical resources, which is actually quite important to when we discuss on the digital skills to develop. Students didn't have access to printers. Well, probably some of them have printers at home, but definitely you make a choice. Will you print all the material for your course? So no, if you don't print it, how do you take notes of your course that's being online when you have it on the screen and you don't have another? How do you move around this, taking notes, for example, on a PowerPoint slide or on a PDF? There was a lot of anxiety, but there were also some positive feelings, like a lot of gratitude from teachers to students. Thank you for playing the game. From students to teachers, thank you for trying and thank you for going online unnoticed. And from all of them to teams like ours for the work. So to sum up this part, this storm, what we saw on the storm, we thought on the wake of COVID-19, we thought we were quite ready to go online. We were actually very happy this is working. There's a lot of technological tools, but now looking back, well, actually we were ready, but we were partially ready, not totally ready, neither technologically nor pedagogically. There is a lot of room for improvement, and this is what is kind of the discussion coming today. This is why we wanted to plan this semester better and not call it emergency remote teaching, but call it online teaching. Students and teachers appreciated each other's efforts and the solutions that we were providing. And I have to say, we shouldn't hide this, as Carmen said. Not everybody complained, but everybody probably wanted to complain. Emergency remote teaching was also an emotional journey. We had all these feelings moving around us and we couldn't make sense of it and we were tired. This speaks not just of a technological or a cognitive challenge. This speaks a bit of the emotions that were involved and that are still inhabiting us. So I would like now to make a small pause and check the comments. Or are there any questions? Motivation, yeah. Adult learners in continuing education, yes. Teaching is still an important extra value they miss, yes. Motivating students for studying online is really difficult. I think we all agree. Fatigue, yes, everybody's facing online teaching fatigue. Since March, most teaching is performed online, a lot of coaching to keep our students motivated. Yes, I mean, Ilya, my colleague, he's doing some training for mentoring for students to mentor others. I let him speak about this if you have questions. But it becomes apparent that we cannot separate the emotional, the psychological journey from the learning journey. The performance element is a major motivational factor for many teachers. How do you encourage teaching staff to improve their teaching online? Very good question. Educational coaching starting to popular. What do you think about educational coaching starting to? I don't understand, Bushra, your question.
I think it's educational coaching starting to become popular. What do you think about that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to say after when we started the online education, and also because I'm psychological counselor, it started to be getting popular, the educational coaching. It's because of the online system. And what do you think about the coaching activities and educational coaching for the university students, especially?
I personally think it's really necessary and it's really important to have it not just in cases of emergency, but like a constant factor of learning, that the students should know it exists from the beginning and not just when they are feeling sad, bad, and stressed. And different universities have different opportunities. Some are very transparent and are very explicit. In others, students have to go and look for them. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, totally.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Yes, Ilya, would you like to add something?
Thanks, Ingrid. Yes, I just wanted to add that one of the major issues that we were worried about from the beginning with the switch to mostly online or completely online again now was the effect on the first year students who were just coming in this semester, who of course hadn't had face-to-face teaching in school for several months in many cases, and many of them had also not sat a final exam in school. And with the challenges of all those things and the change to university education and possibly a move to a new city and the lack of a social network in the new environment in which they're in might have a huge impact on their learning. So we're putting in place, as Ingrid has mentioned to you at EPFL, a system of academic mentors to help the first years to create learning communities, even if they're artificial learning communities, to create learning communities online, to have someone monitoring how they're going in their studies and to direct them accordingly if problems are seen.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so this is where we were in the storm, and this is already we're thinking of things that we're gonna take forward with us. So I would like you again to vote, again to connect on responseware. I'll put again in the comments. Yes, this is a following question. So these are the formats that, which are the formats that you know for teaching? The online formats, you know. Hybrid. Hybrid is a combination of online and on-site. Blended simulcast, HyFlex, the new, yes. Flipped classrooms. Recordings with an online text component, like most MOOCs. Live and online, as we're doing right now. Which ones do you know? You can answer as many answers as you know. So, yes, I would say answers A, C, D, and E. These are formats that we had before COVID. We knew hybrid, this mix of blended, but we didn't know how much we want to do it and how much we want the hybrid. So this I would say from 0 to 108. Same with flipped, you know, where the students prepare things before the class. They have contact with the important theory before the class, and the class, the contact classes are about the interaction and the active learning activities to create meaningful learning experiences. And there's a recording with an online text component. We know it, we've heard of it. We call it a MOOC or a TOOC or a LUC. And then we have the live and online, which is what we're doing now. And it's probably what we used to call 20 years ago e-learning, before recording became. And then blended simulcast is the result of a combination of all these with the added live component. So let me show you some infographics that I quite liked from Clemson University and that we've been using to explain to our teachers the format. So HyFlex, which is the one we speak about most. Here in HyFlex, we have a group of people who are in the class. In our case, we decided it would be a third of the student population in the class and 2/3 who would be live and online. So the challenge here for the instructor is to teach the ones in the class, to have a body language and a discussion with those there, but to also have one with those who are far away online. And for this, we provide tools, perhaps too many tools or perhaps only one tool, but this is, for instance, the electronic voting is one of them. We have other tools for asking questions and discussing online, discussing questions about exercises without getting the solution, but getting a student assistant to interact with you. There are also solutions to write text, long text questions. And then there is always, what is nice in this model is the support online, which is there all the time, because students or participants who are in presence, or also those who are online, will face difficulties, but they probably won't understand or won't be asking questions about those technical, pedagogical, cognitive, or knowledge-related difficulties until they're trying to revise the material and prepare for the next session. Or they were probably not able to attend the session because they had a bad connection and they want to be supported while they watch it later. So it's important to have this parallel support. And this parallel support is perhaps not necessarily a teaching advisor, but is someone who knows the discipline and also knows the technology, but also understands the pedagogical approach. Yes, we can call HyFlex comodal. Comodal is a French term that they gave it. Yes, yes, yeah, it's also a good discussion. Then there is the second kind of most popular model, which is the HyFlex with a flipped component. So as a flipped classroom is, where there is a significant content contact by the participants or the students before they meet the teacher. So usually it takes place as videos, but before the era of videos, it was the readings and the text reviewing before we meet for a seminar discussion. Today, it's more practical, it's active learning, it's think per share, concept test, peer instruction. It's also going back straight to the project work, the case study analysis after previous individual preparation. However, in a HyFlex format, the flip component is also splitted between those who are in class and those who are going to flip the class online. And so the difficulty is there for the teacher with, again, this support for constant support for after the class to consolidate the knowledge that was seen in the class. So where does that take us? I mean, with my colleague Isabel, who's also here, we were preparing a workshop on student motivation a couple of weeks ago. And so we were like, what does the research say? And she found some interesting papers. Okay, of course, it's early times to say this works, this doesn't work. But there are some elements that I think are interesting to discuss. For me, what is important is to realize, I mean, the students we have today is what we used to call digital natives. And we have this assumption that because they are all day online and they're all day, in social media, and they move so swiftly in the virtual environment, probably their social interaction is more taking place in a digital environment than in a face-to-face environment already for these people. We assume they're going to be they're going to easily shift to an online teaching format. But it's actually not the case. From what I read, I found 3 areas that were interesting. First one is the organization. How do I get organized? I mean, it's not the same to organize a course online, to organize where I take notes, when I attend, how do I revise, where do I write, where do I copy? Do I do a concept map for this course, or do I just take notes, or do I save the videos on my computer, or will I always access them on a drive? It's difficult to know these things, and we are actually not really preparing them for that. Did we prepare them before? No. Are we preparing them now? And then there is the question of the what for. In this emotional journey. There is a conversation that at some point, at least in our case, was stopped, and this is the job perspective. And for master students and for executive education or continuing education participants, this is a very important question, because that's the reason why we do continuing education, is to improve our professional performance. So the what for, why is it important that I do this? Is it because for an exam, but probably we're not having exams because this year we're not being graded, or probably we do. Is it because I'm going to do an internship, or because I'm going to do a professional practice? We don't know, actually, because this was lost somewhere in the virtual universe, and we're now bringing it back in separate elements to the conversations. And then there is the question of the social interaction. It's not the same a social forum and a WhatsApp group than a forum for a course. Shall I share my thoughts? I don't like to be exposed like I don't understand, but at the same time I would need to ask a question. But at the same time I'm connected, but I'm not following, but I'm not totally convinced of how I should do it. Or if we say something, are we gonna offend someone who we don't know? Because the virtual universe is kind of anonymous, but not anonymous. It's very dissipated, our identity. So what suggestions can we give? So suggestions we can give, for instance, we saw it in Agustinho paper already before COVID. They were saying, well, we should probably help students know how to take notes on a PDF document. Do they know when, how to save it? Do they know how to, they spend a lot of time watching videos, but also they spend a lot of time locating them swiftly and precisely afterwards. Do you have a video link in your course, or do you have a video space, a channel just for videos for one course? But if you have 15 courses, that becomes a bit complicated. Identifying the correct forum to pose questions and to get answers, not just where to ask, but if you don't ask the question in the right forum, you won't get the answers. So in your courses, are there forums per week, per course, per subject, per teaching assistant, per assignment? We don't know. And this drives to the next question that we could guide better, is the managing an inbox. You know, when you are part of an LMS, you get a message every time a message is posted. If you have 8 courses and you have many students, you get a lot of emails. What do? Do you erase them? Do you keep them? Do you store them? It becomes a lot of emails, and then people don't answer their emails. And then there's a question of the interaction in forums and breakout rooms. Perhaps people don't ask questions in breakout rooms. We, on our side, we realized that students like to be anonymous when they were asking questions. So a breakout room wasn't necessarily great, because they would be identified and they wouldn't ask questions, they wouldn't participate. So we had to come up with other platforms where they could keep some anonymity. These are tools that we think are very technical, but actually they're lifelong learning, because in my opinion, they come here to stay. We're going to use them in our profession following these experiences. So going back to Pascal's question, after the storm, well, actually what helps learning? And I always go back to John Hattie's work on visible learning, which I like very much, and I'm not going to explain it all, but John Hattie, he did a meta-analysis of all the studies in English that he found out before publication, on studies that were showing different factors that help learning. So high quality studies where you could see differences in conditions where the factor or the condition was there and where it was not, and if there was a difference in learning. So he found social factors, disciplinary factors, family factors, and he also found the 2 that are most important for higher education, which are the teaching and teaching method chosen by the teacher and the student factors. Okay. Anyway, so what John Hattie's, his meta-analysis he put together, and what I'm interested here to share with you are in terms of the teaching formats that we're talking about. So if you put them all together and we create a normal distribution and you cut it in the middle, everything kind of helps learning, but there are things that help more. So John Hattie said, okay, let's put it in 0.4. Anything that is more than 0.4 is really helping learning, and it's really worth trying. So things that work better. Here is a list, a summary I made of some. And in terms of continuing education, I want to just drive your attention towards self-regulation, because self-regulation are all these activities that help learners think about how well they're learning, set themselves objectives, and reach those objectives. This is very common in MBA courses where they have learning journals, for instance, after doing all these leadership courses or these courses on management and technology, integration and corporate strategy. How well do you feel? How prepared do you feel to continue in your own profession and bring this in your job? But it's also done in hospitality when students go to work in hotels and restaurants abroad, and they have to make reports, and they do journaling. They do a lot of learning journals on that. Also in nursing, when people have to write their stories on how they feel interacting with patients or with families. So that's something, giving feedback to students, getting feedback. Okay, these are things we usually do. So in a nutshell, what helps learning is making learners active, like by electronic voting, by integrating them. This we know before COVID. Using meaningful learning activities where we feel like, we learned, this is important. Now I understand better something I knew before. It has a different meaning, and I can associate things with the new learning. Clear and well-communicated learning goals. This is a discussion we've had for many years, but once the teacher is aware of what are their intentions in teaching to help students do something better or to do something they couldn't do before their course, it helps the teacher focus their teaching and choose the material and choose teaching methods. And communicating these objectives helps the students engage with the course. And giving and getting feedback on how well you're teaching and how well students are understanding is very important. It's not just the grade that is feedback for the student, but it's also the progression to correct the path and to also congratulate things that are doing well and students are reaching successfully. And clear explanations, that was not in the Hattie study, it was in a recent one by Schneider. I would say it's like Albert Einstein used to say, if you cannot explain it simply, you didn't understand it clearly. So it's very important for learning. So are there any questions? I'm using all your time. Yes? So let's think of the future. Now we know what works for learning in terms of formats. We know what worked and what could improve from the emergency remote teaching situation in our case. And now let's look towards the future. I want to know what you think. So in your situation, let's do a vote. What do you feel ready to do? Like right now, at this moment in time, after you saw this presentation, what would you go out and be ready to do to help academics prepare for the future? Would you be willing to introduce like self-monitoring instrument, like a learning journal, or to create courses for digital skill developments that we've been discussing, you know, PDFs, looking for creating videos, editing your own videos? Or are you ready, or are you in a position to promote a new teaching mindset? Or are you ready to support the emotional change? Or to mix the format, saying, okay, now we're going to do this one flip, this one high flex, this one has to stay on campus. We know how to take this decision. We are ready to start. Are you ready to pre-record and make your courses available? Are your teachers ready to pre-record courses and make them available? Okay. Aha. Oh. It is an interesting result. I'm going to ask you to do a print screen, and I'm going to send you to breakout rooms to discuss these results and to discuss them and to discuss how you think you're going to implement them. And I think this is a discussion you should have with each other because it will be very useful. Mixing teaching formats, you're ready. Promote new teaching mindset. Well, I'm surprised. I'm happily surprised. How would you do that? How would you introduce digital skills development? Is it going to be separate courses? Is it going to be integrated to all courses? Or are you going to do a boot camp for teachers before they start teaching in your area? Okay, Carmen, can you send them on breakout rooms? Right, so as you come in, I would like you just to do a last vote after your discussion. I am curious to know, what is your prediction? I know I have my own beliefs, but what would be the share of hybrid versus just pure face-to-face? I'm going to ask people to vote as they come in. Yes. I think it is interesting because we were very hopeful, very optimistic at the beginning of lockdown, at least in our case with online. Oh, it's working so well. Then we were like, oh, we're so fed up. And now we're like, oh, it's still ongoing. So what are we going to do? Is it coming to stay? God, if it stays, we should pick and choose what we keep online and what we do, the components. So there were 350. So adding the responses we had on the chat, I think we are equals with 2550, and a few said 75%. I guess this is an engineering school, huh? It's very interesting because for nobody it's 100%, nobody is 0%. There will be something. And the question I would say would be the balance would be perhaps per discipline and also per digital skill comfort on the side of the teachers and the supporting teams. Anyway, I would like to drive us to my conclusion. For me, looking forward to continuing education in 2020 means creating opportunities that support learning in different flexible formats, either remote, in-person, hybrid. And these opportunities, at least in my opinion, they should provide digital know-how, development, but also an emotional care. Because we get fed up very quickly or we get caught up with things that then block our progression in the journey. And with this, you know, I prepared this presentation. None of the material was created only by me. I work with a team of fantastic people, so you can use this material. I'll send the slides to Carme with the results of the polling, so you can have it and share it. And I want to thank you and open the floor for questions. If you have time, I'm willing to stay. I'll stay another couple of minutes.
The floor is open. Thank you very much, Ingrid. Are there any other questions in the chat or directly? I think you've answered a lot of questions already during the presentation. Looking at the comments in the chat, your presentation was really highly appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It was really a very inspiring presentation. I think we could all identify with what you talked about. We are kind of all the same in the same storm, if I may say so. You gave very interesting and precise elements about the various formats. And toward the end of your presentation, we could really look at the future and ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do next? So I think that we are done with the questions. So maybe to close the day, I'd like to ask Carme if maybe you could show the schedule of the week. I think you have a slide. So we've just seen the masterclass by Ingrid, and from tomorrow to Thursday, we'll have shorter presentations. Tomorrow we'll have two with Susan Dennett from University of Miami and Esther Martinez from Universidad Carlos III de Madrid. Then other short presentation on Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday that will be the panel discussions. I'll ask Carmen maybe to send you again the link to post your questions. All the presenters of the week will be present on Friday, so it's a fantastic opportunity to continue the discussions and the debate we'll have during the whole week. Thank you again, Ingrid. Thank you, Carme, for organizing the day. And thank you to all the participants. I think it was a fantastic start to the week. And we're looking forward to see you again tomorrow at 12. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.